At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super NES Podcast, episode number 277 for you. I am Greg, as always, joined by my co-host Joe.
Hello.
And we are covering an episode, I should say this episode is covering a game that we hadn't originally planned for because I'm not smart. If I was smart, I would have thought about this months ago that this is coming up. But we figured it was appropriate since we just had a Winter Olympics happen. If there was one Olympics game for the Super NES, and yes, there was one Super NES Winter Olympics game. So our intent was to record and release this while the Olympics were still going on, but real life problems unfortunately pushed recording this episode back to where it actually finished as of recording this a couple of days ago. I think behind the mic knowledge, we're recording this on a Tuesday. The game's finished on Sunday. I think the last thing I saw was that really good U.S. Canada Olympics men's hockey game, which is awesome. So
yeah.
I think that was the last activity I saw anyway. Anyway, the point is this is coming out shortly after the Olympics ended. That hopefully she'll be fresh in everybody's mind and nobody will hold it against us. So anyway, and this winter time being appropriate, it also seems appropriate because Joe just finished going through a very major snowstorm. He lives, and I have a bit of a cold, so if you're hearing that my voice or whatever, sorry about that. But anyway, the game the Olympics game for the Super NES is called different things depending upon your source. The actual game was originally developed for the Amiga, Genesis, and DOS in 1993, where it was called just something Winter Olympics. When the game got ported to other systems, such as the Game Boy, Super NES, Game Gear, and believe it or not, Master System, because the Master System still had a lot of life in 1993 in Europe and Brazil and whatever. It got renamed as being Winter Olympics games. But what I understand is that the official name of the game is Olympic Winners Games Lillehammer, Norway, because Lillehammer, because Lillehammer, Norway is where the 94 Winter Olympics took place at. So anyway, that's just a long-winded way of saying what the name's called depends upon your version of the game and where you play it at. So. As I just alluded to, it came out for multiple platforms. Amiga, Genesis, DOS, Game Boy, Super NES, Game Gear, Master System. Most of these versions were released in both North America and Europe. Now, the Master System version only came out in Europe for obvious reasons. And the Amiga version also came out only in North America, also for obvious reasons. Well, maybe not so obvious. The Amiga was more... The Amiga was definitely had a bigger base in North America. It did have... I think it did get a European release, but definitely did not sell as well over there because it was a very expensive computer for the time, and Europeans' budgets were not as able to spend on luxury items such as that. That's another reason why cheaper computers such as a Spectrum and whatnot did so well over there, because people didn't have as much people didn't have as much money to spend on things like that. In Europe, compared to North America for gaming, the 80s and 90s. So, most of these versions came out either 93 or 94. The Super NES version appeared to release almost the same time in North America and Europe in February, appropriate. Actually, this is correct. I have your release date in Europe of February 24th, which is the day they're recording this.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. I don't think that. So I don't think we've ever actually recorded a game. A game episode on its release date, yeah. So North America just is February, so maybe the same date. I don't know, but a lot of this game is not documented very well, unfortunately. So so there's some which we'll talk about here later on. So I am taking some educated guesses. So the game was. So the game was developed by a small company known as Tiertex. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly. Tiertex Design Studios Limited, which was a British company. They were around 1987 to 2021, so pretty long life. Mostly they handled ports of games to ports of games like to computers. Not too much that they actually developed themselves. They're mostly known like their ports. A lot of their games, of course, were Europe only since they were a British company. So, the game was published by US Gold, who had the license to had the Olympics license, to make official Olympics games during this time period. We've already covered US Gold before in past episodes. Reminder that despite the name of the game being US Gold, they actually were also British based as well. The name alludes to the fact that they brought over the best quote unquote games from the US and bring them over to Europe for a cheap price. So that's why that's why they're called that. There are sizable differences between each version of the game, depending upon which system the game was released on. The developers tried to take advantage of some of the strengths, for each console. Just to give a couple examples, Tiertex wrote original code for each platform as well. So I think we'll talk about here in a moment as far as this game goes. But I think. For the most part, doing that allowed them to, as I said, to try to really make the game stand out for the particular platform, the platform that the game was appearing on. To give one example, differences: the Master System version is usually recognized as having the best control for alpine skiing events in this game. For example, the freestyle moguls, to give another example, are very different than the 16-bit version of the game compared to their counterparts. And so on and so on. The Super NES version is considered to be one of the most difficult versions of the game, actually. Particularly in terms of Genesis version, which a lot of people consider to be a very easy version of the game. I know you and I talked about difficulty of this game already a little bit off mic, Joe. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts about that when we get there. But just to get out front, there are the recognizable differences between the games. So this game follows the same formula that many official Olympic games before and since have done. It's just a combination of mini games, based upon actual Olympic events. You have 10 games you could pick from. I should say 10 events in this game that you could pick from. Downhill, slalom. Super G, regular slalom, bobsled, luge, freestyle moguls, which in the console versions only, ski jumping, biathlon, and the short track. And you're able to pick from 16 different nations, to play as. You are able to. There is a limited multiplayer functionality included. They include the game. They race against 3 players all together. And basically you have the option in the front of either doing the full 10 events, just doing one event, or you can also just do practice events with the scores. Don't worry, the scores that are not saved. And as far as gameplay goes, that's essentially it. Like I said, they didn't reinvent the wheel heel. They just simply copied the typical formula you see on these official Olympic games, and just kind of had a bunch of mini games included. So, knowing that, Joe, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because this is the first time that either of us have played this, by the way. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Joe, as to how you actually thought the overall presentation and gameplay of this was.
So, one thing I think it's important to mention, I was kind of thrown back that like 7 of these events are you on skis. I assume it's probably the easiest of the games to probably program for, which is probably why other games I'm sure would have been difficult to do so. Also, historical context. Nancy Kerrigan was attacked before the Olympic Games here in '94.
Right. Yep.
So that was a big controversy that was going on. That attack actually happened on January 6th, and she was able to recover enough to be able to compete. And what was even more scandalous at the time is that Tanya Harding, who was the assumed perpetrator or someone close to her, was also competing in the games. And this would be her last games because after the investigation, they found out that her boyfriend at the time was the one who set the whole thing up, did the whole thing for Tanya, that whole thing, and then she got banned from the Olympics for life. So I wanted to get that out of the way because that brought a lot of eyeballs to the '94 Olympics, in my opinion.
Yes.
This was like the not only that did we have Atlanta '96 coming for the Summer Games, but this was like since the '80s in Lake Placid, New York. The miracle game. This was probably the most high-profile thing happening, and this got a lot of people back into the Olympics. And then, of course, that's grown since every year. So I wanted to definitely put that context in, because I think before '94, like, you would see Olympic Games, but it was, like, very generic and not really branded as such, whereas I think this is really the first game that was really branded as this is the Olympics of Lilyhammer 1994. You know what I mean?
Well, the first actual official Olympic video game was done in 1984 for the Sarajevo Summer Olympics. However, your point's very valid in the sense that the earlier games were just kind of like very generic. Generic mini games. At least there's mini games this one too, but at least they really tried to give it the Olympic flair and touch with the presentation. The presentation of these events of this game, we'll talk about here in just a moment. So. As for your point about skiing being heavily represented, I think it's just because that skiing's the most fun for a player to do. I think ice skating, for example, is very fun to watch, but ice skating's hard to do. Ice skating's hard to do for video game formats.
Yeah, especially at this time. I was gonna say, with more modern consoles, you have the analog sticks, and they've definitely incorporated stuff like that. But again, like for me, like Olympic games in general, like it's Mario and Sonic Olympics, like so. My bar is low. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, I think it's still a decent variety of games that you're getting. Although 7 of them are technically skiing of some way, shape, or form. I do like that you have an option of doing a full-on Olympics, or you can do like a mini Olympics. Mm-hmm. Might as well talk about this now because you were going to talk about it anyways. With the Olympics, you're getting the opening and closing ceremonies, which I thought was a great touch.
Yes, I agree. They cannot use, however, the famous John Williams theme because that's his own different copyright.
Correct.
And they probably would have charged an arm and a leg to be able to get that.
But you know what? Like watching the guy, go and light the torch and the flags raise, and then for the closing, the flags come down and the flame goes out. I thought that was a good touch. It was just enough to make it different.
Yes.
And I thought it was a very good touch. So, full Olympics, you're going to play all 10 events. And like I said, that includes your opening and closing ceremonies. With the mini Olympics, you can actually select what events you play. But you're sacrificing the Olympic experience, quote unquote, because you're not getting your opening and closing ceremonies. And then you have training, and with training, you can actually play certain events head to head. I, of course, forgot to mention which ones those are in my notes. Go figure. I also like that the skill levels are appropriate. So you have the choice of club, national, or Olympic. Obviously, club is your easy mode.
Yes.
I would say club is beginner. Club is super easy. National is a bit harder. And then Olympic, in my opinion, is almost impossible. I didn't even medal in Olympic, which was sad. But, you know, that it's the Olympics. It all comes down to control and graphics. And I can tell you the game feels okay, but, you know, unless you're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the whole thing, you know, like for the skiing events, you got to start in your hut position, and then you press any button to get in, like to get you ready, and then it's like you're using L and R to kind of ski and get momentum going. What was one of the other ones that the control scheme? Oh, bobsledding. My God. All right, so bobsledding, you press X and Y to push. As you're gaining speed, you know, obviously speed is a factor with this. And then your steering's done with left and right. And then, you know, each game has a criteria. So, let's see, we'll go in order of my notes here. So, I started off with the Super G. So, Super G basically takes is it 2? Oh, here we go. It's 2 runs. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get 2 runs. It's whatever the lowest combined time is for that, which will place you where you place. And same thing with slalom. It's the same thing. You get 2 runs. Whoever gets the fastest time. Freestyle moguls. Or moguls, or however you say that. This one was interesting because it's slalom without being slalom, and they got like mounds of snow that you can use as ramps to kind of do tricks. It's more or less you're just jumping; you're not really doing tricks. But
with some very like odd placed crowd sounds also.
Yes,
kind of
yes.
Bits like weird because I guess since I brought up this is like an okay time to mention it.
Yeah.
The games are very quiet.
Yes.
There's which you can debate if these should have music or not. You know, I understand why they didn't have music. Would it have helped? Maybe. I mean, you can make an argument either way. But some of the events do have sound effects, and this is one of them. And it's like it's saying, I guess it's realistic because crowds probably do react in those moments, but it just in the silence of everything that's going on around you, it just feels very like out of place.
Yeah, I agree. And much like any of the games that you're playing here, everything is timing, and timing is super important. So with this one, like you get to execute, you got to follow a line. You execute at least 2 jumps. The timing, technique, and jump performance are all evaluated. I actually got it broken down to where your time and jumps account for 25% each. So that's 50%. And then the other 50% is technique. And you use the face buttons to be able to perform a single stunt. Again, there's not, it's not anything crazy. We're not playing SSX here. Ski jumping is another one. Man. So this one and ski jumping, I think were 2 of the biggest ones that I had issues kind of getting a grip on. So with ski jumping, you get 2 jumps, and you're awarded points based on your style and technique. So going down the ramp, and you use the D button to lean left or right for balance, and then you use the face buttons to be able to set your posture, essentially. And then, of course, as you approach the ground, you got to hit a face button to be able to land the jump. So if you jump too early, you'll lose distance, but if you jump too late, you'll probably crash. And it's a very delicate balance. You could very well on your first jump do fantastic and then totally tank it on the second one. Sometimes where I felt like, okay, maybe it's not my skill, it's just literally random zeros and ones that are being thrown at the screen and telling me whether I survive or don't. But yeah, I don't know, that one just seemed kind of random to me. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, my experiences either pretty similar. I did not have as much of an issue with control scheme in this game overall as you did. I think. I think that the controls felt fine for most of the events. I do wish some of them were more precise, such as the bobsled you already mentioned. But
yeah.
Once you get the hang of it, I mean, they're not bad. They're all right. I mean, I certainly have played games like worse controls. So, like I said before, the programming feels fine because they did try to actually develop the code straight for the system as opposed to porting it over. So, it's just that I think that when you have like 7, I guess technically 7 biathlons, like half skiing, half shooting.
Right,
so I
right.
don't know what to count that as, but 7-ish skiing events. The controls are going to be very similar across the board.
Right.
So, I think if you have an issue with one, you're probably going to have an issue with another one too.
Yeah.
So, just how it is. But overall, I thought that, overall, I thought the controls were fine. Do I wish they were a bit more responsive? Sure. But I thought that, once you get the hang of things, they work all right.
Yeah, I found the most issue, like you said, with the skiing, once you get it down, and it covers a majority of the games. Bobsled and luge, I always crashed. And I think it's just because I was overcompensating for the turns or not compensating enough. That's really what it was, because I had some good pushes, to be able to get going and everything else. But at some point, I would either, ride up too far up the wall or, end up crashing. So, and, crashing in the luge event, watching your poor little guy crash, you know what I mean? Kind of feel bad for him.
Yeah.
You mentioned the biathlon. So this one was okay. So you gain speed by holding the left button on the D-pad, and then Y and A to be able to, move and kind of, basically ski, much like the other ones. The shooting, I did not like the shooting. That was my biggest issue with that, but it's not horrible. It's just,
it does take a while to get used to, because the fact that the shooting is so different than anything else in the game, I think maybe it helps throw you off a little bit. And also the fact that there's not too many games on the Super NES that have shooting like this, where it's like kind of like pseudo 2D, not really 2D-ish perspective,
right,
where it's like you're actually it's like, it's a bit hard to describe. You're like behind it, you're behind into the side by your character,
yeah,
and there's a zoom in, there's an insert zoom in of the target. So it works. It's very awkward at first.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think this event probably. I don't think overall this event's the hardest. But I think overall this is the one that has the greatest learning curve to figure out how to do well because how different it is. It's not bad. It's just it's very different than anything else here, and for that reason stands out.
One of the easiest games that's on here is, in my opinion, the short track speed skating. You literally
we mentioned before there wasn't any skating event.
Yeah.
I forgot about this one.
So you just randomly press X and Y, obviously, alternating, which helps you gain speed, and then you press left and right to be able to get around the track. And I mean, you can't get any simpler than that.
Right.
It was funny because when I was playing the game and taking notes, I got to this event, and Norma had been sitting on the couch the entire time watching me, the entire time going like, why are you playing this game, sort of thing. And then I'm doing the speed skating, and she was like, my God, she's like, that looked like the easiest thing that's been in this game. And I was like, well, I'll tell you from playing it, it is.
Right.
One other touch I wanted to add too is they actually do have a screen where you get a medal table when you do the full Olympics, that is. And they'll show where you placed and show you what medals you won. I thought that was cool because, sometimes, I mean, granted, most of the games are rather quick, as you'd imagine. So, like, going through a full Olympics, I think I clocked it at, 20, 25 minutes, somewhere around there. Most people are going to remember where they placed and whatever, but, some people really get into their games, and they're not going to remember what happened in the first couple games because they're too focused on the other games they're doing. So it's nice to have that little reminder for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So since you mentioned the presentation, I guess it's also kind of like a good area to bring it up. There's also another presentation screen you see every now and then. I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember exactly what triggers it, but every now and then you will see another kind of presentation screen where the screen where like two kids are talking about an event or like are getting ready to make an award or something like that. But and it's it's a very off-putting screen because. The graphics are not good here. The kids look terrible. They look like they're being tortured almost because they're pain expressions. It's so out of place. The whole polished, good-looking, professional Olympic feel of the whole game, and then all of a sudden you have this weird screen show up.
Yeah.
I assume it's from other. You'll assume that is just. I meant to look into this. I look at this, but I forgot. I assume that screen's from other versions of the game too, and they just want to try to copy over code or whatever. Yeah. But I'm not sure why it's here. It wasn't really needed because like I said, everything you just said, they have the very nice official looking presentation screen. So I don't know why they had. So I don't know why they felt the need to include this bonus scene, these two weird kids for us.
Yeah, and you got me on that one too.
No, the event I felt was the hardest, not because of controls. The event I had, so the event I felt was hardest because the controls was biathlon, as I just said. The event I felt was hardest overall was the flights. You like the Super G because it's technically a speed event, but there's also but you're also doing other but you are doing but you're also having to race between the poles,
right?
Right, and the super implies it's longer, it's harder, and I found, at least to me, that it was much harder to make the turns and to be able to get in and to be hit on the poles correctly. So to me, this was the hardest event.
So I'm not gonna lie, I played the training section a lot. So for the Super G, by the time I got to the Super G, I had already done a ton of training with the other skiing events that, yeah, it was more difficult, but it was because, slalom is short lefts and rights in between the poles. Here, like, you're double to tripling that turn. So it makes it a lot wider. It changes your whole aspect of how you're moving around. And yeah, I can see where you're coming from 100%.
Ski jumping I thought was pretty challenging too at first. Like I felt, well, but compared to Super G, which I thought I never was great at, I eventually got pretty good at ski jumping. That just takes like a lot of practice to get good at that one.
Yes.
But yeah, ski jumping to me was actually to me was actually one of my favorites to play. I really liked that one. I also really liked kind of walking controls aside. I also had a lot of fun playing the bobsled and luge events.
Yeah.
Because those because those are just like fun things to do. Period. So
yeah.
So I really didn't hate any events overall. The short track, like you said, was definitely the easiest. I guess if I had to say, I'd like that I really didn't. I understand why they were here, but I wish they hadn't included the Salam, the Giant Salam, and the Super G, because I didn't really Super G because I really didn't think there was too much of a difference between them. It's like the Super G, I understand being here because that's more of a longer, difficult version of it. But they're like the Giant Salam, the Giant Salam is just the longer version of the Salam, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
it's the same problem that the Summer Olympics games have, where it's like you have the 400 meter dash and the 1,000 meter dash both included. It's like, what's the point?
Right.
But so. Being here for realism is great, but one would have been fine to play. Playing all three of those back to back. If you are doing the full Olympic event, just kind of a tedious.
Yeah.
But everything else here I pretty much had fun with.
Yeah. I mean, overall, spoiler, I don't hate this game. It was rather enjoyable. Definitely more than I expected it to be, because it was an Olympics game. So, I went in with low expectations, and per those expectations, I was blown away because it was better than I expected. But, yeah, we could point at individual games and have our gripes, and that's our job here. We're here to pick apart the game and talk about what we don't like and what we do like. So, as a whole, I think it's just a fun game for sure. Graphically, I think everything is well represented. It's bright and colorful, considering most of it's white. Your sprite is pretty good. The obstacles that they put, for the slaloms, really good. The flags, I thought they did a great job. Even with the bobsled and the luge, you really get that feeling that you're going down that track. So that was nice. And
so graphically, I agree with you for the most part. I had a couple quibbles about the graphics, though. Maybe just me. I thought that maybe some of the background details kind of seemed a bit washed out, and not as sharp as it could have been. And also some of the detail, and also some of the events. The camera, and I think this is more of a fault of the game engine. The camera is so zoomed in upon you, the player, that some of the detail is some of the detail is kind of fuzzy and not really very clear either. I think just because of the limitations of the Super NES and the graphical engine that they're using in this game. So
yeah, that's fair.
From a further out perspective, skiing, it looks great. I agree with you, but for the ones that are closer in, like the bobsled and the luge, it definitely feels a bit washed out.
Yeah,
and some of the events, I felt the background graphics also suffered a washed out effect as well.
Yeah, and like I said, I think they look good overall. And this also includes the opening and closing ceremony. So.
Those look great.
Yeah. Amazing. And like I said, the whole, raising of the flags and the torch in the beginning and then lowering, I thought they did a great job with that, and I bundled that in with my graphics feeling as well. Or I would have been with you. I would have been subpar graphics in my opinion, but they did a really good job with that opening and closing presentation.
Yeah. So, yep. We were talking about. So we were talking about music and sound effects. We were talking about controls. So I guess we can kind of wrap things up here. Generally speaking, I agree with you. It's I went to this expecting an okay package of Olympic games, and I came out feeling it was an okay package of Olympic games.
Yeah.
It's for the time period. This is what you got when you saw a Summer Olympics or a game. It's you got a number of events based upon the actual Olympic sports, and that was it. It's replay value is probably not here, but it's kind of game you could dust out every now and then, especially to play, especially if you have friends to compete against. So would have made for good rento back in the day for sure. Probably because the fact that it was probably because the fact that it was a Olympics game, this is the first time in a long time where I could not find a contemporary review or review of the game. Nobody talked about it. Probably because nobody really cared.
Right.
So I don't know how well it sold. Prices on eBay are cheaper than expected. We'll talk about that here at the end, but maybe it did sell pretty well. Hence the cheap prices. But I could not find a single review for this game. Modern comments, YouTube videos give it middling marks, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
So. I think obviously you would have been, but hindsight's 2020. I think this game would have gotten higher marks had it been reviewed back then as opposed to now, which is why I tried really hard to find anything.
Right.
And I just couldn't find anything for it, unfortunately. So, probably did not get much of much attention. When it came out. Plus, also, it was available on multiple platforms as well too. So, I was the only Super NES reviews. Maybe there might have been reviews of this game in other platforms instead. Like I said, since the developers tried to make unique versions for each platform, I really didn't feel it was fair to say, okay, the Genesis version of this game got X score when it's not really the same version of Super NES for the Super NES game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but anyway, not bad. I mean, would you play it today? Probably not. Not unless you're a big fan of going to the events shown here or not, because as Joe mentioned, the Mario and Sonic Olympic games are pretty well regarded as being very good games. These days, and probably are the standard to go by as far as Olympic games to play. So. Both the arcade and the home versions are both excellent to play. Absolutely. For sure. So, but anyway, for its time, it's not bad. Like Joe said, this game was pretty good for what it set out to. Pretty good for what it was, because they could have just simply shoveled out a bunch of games out the door and called it a day. Yep. But the developers did try to get some effort into this at least, which shows, I think. As far as the actual, overall package goes.
Yeah, I mean, would this be a weekend rental? It could be. I don't know if I would have grabbed Winter Olympics myself, but also, there were those days where we'd go to Blockbuster and they wouldn't have the game we were looking for. So would this be a good alternative? Maybe, especially if you had a friend over for the weekend. So for that reason, I would say you don't need to own this because it's a 25-minute game. That being said, if you got a bunch of friends still that you want to play this game on the real hardware, I'm sure this is affordable, and I would definitely say pick it up. Outside of that, emulation, go the emulation route. You should at least check this out. I definitely think it's a fun curiosity to go back and look at some of these old games. I think about California games. That's a game that just doesn't hold up anymore for multiple reasons. But it's a
Yeah,
game.
I played California games a lot as a kid, and I've not played it for a long time. So I don't know how I feel about it now. You're probably right.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have the same feeling when I go back to play that game.
There was also what was the sequel slash spin-off to that? I can't remember the name of it like right now. There was yeah, probably that game's probably the same probably the same way.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I should also say, speaking about like looking back, I do the opening presentation of the title screen is also very nice because they actually like show you like they do like a montage of like the previous Winter Olympic Games up to this point. You're showing you like where they were played at what year, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like so that's a nice touch. But the whole like we're saying the overall presentation of this game is very nice. Definitely the highest marks that I can give this game is for a presentation like an appearance because they really did put a lot of effort into it. Yes, eBay has already been alluded to. This game's pretty available and pretty cheap. I found 80 copies of this game listed on eBay. 16 copies of the game recently sold. This is, of course, the Super NES version of the game only. As I said, the game was released on multiple other platforms. Prices there may vary. For North America copies, including shipping, you can get a card of this game for $10 to $33, and CIB for $16 to $23. So, yeah, very cheap, very affordable to pick up if you want to.
Yeah.
I mentioned other systems specifically because the Master System got a limited release because it was 1993 and released in Europe only, and that version of the game is fairly expensive to get these days. But the other versions of the game are all roughly around that price point. Some some a little bit cheaper, some a bit more expensive, but yeah, not a very expensive game to get for your collection. So, probably because they didn't want to have any kind of commentary directed to them for doing this. There's no cheat codes or anything included in the game. Because cheating Olympics does happen on a regular basis, unfortunately, and people and teams and whole nations have been disqualified for doing that in the past. Yeah. So
thankfully, they don't have a curling event here.
Yeah, well, again, curling's like another one of those events that would not be very fun as a video game, probably. So,
yeah.
I mean, there are curling games out there, but would you want to include it in a collection like this? Probably not.
Right.
Hockey would have been fun to include, but hockey's its own kind of separate sport. So I guess maybe they felt they didn't want to they wanted to give usually the Olympic Games, they wanted to focus upon the Olympic specific events and not the ones that are played outside the Olympics as well too.
Right.
So, I mean, that's not entirely true either because there are major skiing events done. There are major skiing events done all the time outside the Olympics. But I'm saying they want to focus upon what people think about when they think of the Olympics. They wanted to include in this game if possible. So, in curling, maybe something that comes to people's mind because it's a joke. But but as a game, it's probably not very good. Whereas bobsled, because the stereotypes, movies and jokes associated about that is something you definitely want to have on here because not only is it powerfully associated with the Olympics, but also it's pretty fun to do. So yeah. But anyway, so I think that about wraps it up. Kind of a short episode this time around. Anything else you want to say on closing, Joe, before we wrap this up?
No, I think I pretty much covered it all.
Okay. All right. Well, there were, obviously, there are later Olympic Games. There was 96, the 96 games, the 98 games, so on. Until the present. I don't know if there was an official 2024 Winter Olympic game. 26 game. I forgot to check about that. There probably was something out there licensed, I'm sure, by the committee, but Usually the Sonic and Mario Olympic Games, which were officially tied to at least one Olympics. I'm not sure if they still are, but anyway, that's pretty much the go-to standards for these games. As far as these games are these days, and also as closing thought, a very weird curiosity. It's like, for us as kids, Joe, since we are both getting up there in age, for us to, as a kid, we never would have imagined that we never would have imagined that Nintendo and Sega would actually be partners working together on projects.
That's the truth.
On projects such as like Mario and Sonic at the Olympics, among many other things. So, it's still a bit weird to think about.
yeah, especially when I was a Genesis does and Nintendo kid, but. Hey, you know what? I invested in the Dreamcast, and when that failed, I said from the minute that death nail was put on that system, I said, hopefully they just keep with the software, and we continue to get Sonic games on other systems, and that's what we've got. I can't ask for any more than that, and they've done so much.
Well, they kind of had to because of because Sega's hands pretty much forced that point. They had to drop out of hardware and go into software only, like otherwise they've gone bankrupt.
Right.
So, and obviously that rebrand, as you said, has worked out pretty well because Sega owns multiple companies such as Atlas, and they're still developing, games themselves.
Yep.
Sonic games have not been, unfortunately, very good in recent years, but they still have a very rich library, of games that they could tap. Like they do own several lucrative properties and companies, so they're definitely much better these days.
Yeah,
so,
I've always seen it as with Sonic with Sega. So Sega can take chances on Sonic because, like Mario, people will buy it just because it says Sonic. So they can take chances and change the gameplay and do weird things. So although I might not be happy with some of the games that they've done, I understand why they took those chances and went onwards. So, I mean, think about what if, like, Mario 64 wasn't a thing? What if they just went for another 2D Mario, but it was like a 2.5D Mario for the N64, and they didn't go 3D. I think about weird things like that and like what would have happened. So I don't know. It's weird.
I don't think there was a 2.5 platformer available for that system because everybody was doing 3D at that point. So
well, right. So they were forced to do a 3D Mario. I understand, but I'm saying like, what if? Like, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people
because I know that. Yeah, because Sony reportedly did not want to release several games because they were 2D based on the system, because the craze of the time was all 3D stuff. So, I understand your point. Your point is an interesting question because it's like, but if that 3D craze had to happen at that point, what might have happened? I mean, who knows? But. Luckily, Sony and eventually Nintendo softened their stances on that with some later games. Yeah. But anyway, we're off topic here anyway. Thank you as always. Listen to the podcast as always. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can leave them on Facebook group, or you can also send us an email to the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com. Joe, how can they reach you at?
I have a very public Facebook, which you can find easily by searching my name. Not family friendly, definitely not work safe. Just keep that in mind. I also have an X account that I don't really touch, but I occasionally post there, which is at JOESUX30. And I do occasionally, very seldom now, stream on Twitch, which is JOESUX69. Definitely, give me a follow there, so this way you're alerted when I do go live. It's a lot of wrestling content, and with 2K26 coming out in like a month, I'm sure I will probably be putting more time into playing those games, and I always stream those. So,
yeah, okay, cool. Alrighty, as always, thank you. Next time the podcast. We planned to record this a while ago, hence I was actually saying this at this point. It was coming up, but because we wanted to accommodate both this game and Mega Man X2, it got pushed back. But I promise, next time we are recording Bill and Bear's Combat Basketball. Yep. So research is already done. I've already I've already played the game like quite a bit. So I'll play it again between now and then to be sure about things. But generally, yeah, it's ready to go. So,
look forward to it.
Yep. As always, thank you very much for listening to us. Have a good day, everybody. We'll catch you again next time. Later, all.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.